We're going.
Good morning, everybody. Uh, Welcome to this meeting. And I think the most useful thing I can do is provide a context for this meeting concerning the education component of a project that will also involve research. The timing is quite appropriate because South African tertiary education is in considerable turmoil at the moment. And it started with the students being dissatisfied with the rate of transformation. And I think what we can contribute is a project that will attract more Black students to science, students in general to science. And we have to keep in mind that the purpose of an education, scientific education, is not only the acquisition of knowledge and skills that are needed for a variety of jobs, but equally important is the building of self-confidence and self-esteem. And that is why symbols are important and also questions that are meaningful to everyone. So whatever research project we plan has to be one that the layman and say the Minister of Science certainly should be able to understand quite readily. It should not be something esoteric that takes years and years of study that should become familiar with. A splendid example to always are the astronomers, and they, given the enormous resources they get, and one could ask, well, how does society justify that? And it seems to me the astronomers benefit from the keen interest everybody has in the heavens. And Earth scientists similarly can get attention and resources by capitalizing on the interest that everyone has in planet Earth. You could argue that global warming at the moment gets considerable attention, but the focus there is on imminent gloom and doom, and it contributes to the polarization of opinions on global warming, at least in the rich country. Most of the laymen are quite divided about global warming, and the net result is inaction. And there's about to be a meeting in Paris to discuss this issue. I'm quite sure all sorts of decisions, pledges will be made. Whether anything will actually happen over the next 5 to 10 years is quite questionable. And how can we change that? It's not a good state of affairs. And I will argue that that focus on gloom and doom creates opportunities for a complementary, optimistic approach that emphasizes how exceptional our planet is. It's the only one in the whole universe known to be habitable. We're in a very special place at a special time and have special responsibilities as stewards of this planet. So the challenge to us is to use concern about the Earth as a vehicle for education, for the alleviation of poverty. A project with both the research and education component to study the seasonal cycle today and in the past can contribute significantly to this goal, helping planet Earth serve as a vehicle for education. The seasonal cycle is this huge, reliable global climate change. It's familiar to everyone, by which I mean laymen, learners in primary and secondary school, university students, and even researchers, for whom the seasonal cycle poses several important unanswered questions. So we need a project to study that phenomenon that involves everyone, not just the research scientists. Before I briefly going to list a few specific topics for discussion, but before I do that, let me point out that we're going to have very lengthy and heated debates, and the net result could be inconclusive. And so it is useful to have a specific date in mind by which we wish to accomplish certain objectives. And I propose that the year 2019 is apposite for celebrations, because that will be the 50th anniversary of the first picture of planet Earth from the moon. And so one could designate tentatively 2019 as a year of intensive measurements, observations, and with some additional measurements the preceding and subsequent year to provide a context for 2019. I think John Field is in your audience amongst you, and he certainly can recall the international geophysical years. So this will not be the first time that something like this is being proposed. The seasonal cycle is exceptionally interesting in Southern Africa and its surrounding oceans, but it is a global phenomenon, so this project has to be international. However, the international community is focusing on the gloom and doom aspects of global warming. So it seems to me that South Africa should step forward with a proposal based on this appealing, optimistic perspective that reflects African concerns. To us Africans, global warming is of interest because it's a vehicle for education. Nonetheless, even if it's African concern that drives us, it's a perspective that can benefit everybody. And so I think South Africa can take the lead. There's a void at the moment. Nobody is proposing that rather than get people depressed about the terrible things that are about to happen, we need to remind them how fortunate we are to be on this planet, the only one that is habitable. And international, the reason I think South Africa should take the lead in the international project is it will become a powerful symbol for the country, one that attracts the youth to science with self-confidence. It could be something comparable to SKA. So the big challenge really is how do we proceed? What strategy do we follow for such an ambitious project? And here we need a discussion of whether we should take what I will call a top-down approach as opposed to a bottom-up approach. Which of those two is going to be the most successful? By top-down, I mean an approach that in principle is democratic, in that everyone has an opportunity to describe his or her preferences. But in practice, such an approach can lead to an incoherent collection of separate projects with little in common except for being under one big umbrella. Fragmented efforts remain fragmented. The alternative is a bottom-up approach in which a small group of people, let's call it a group of leaders, they prepare a specific proposal that describes the goals, the resources that will be required to address important questions that need an integration of the fragmented parts. The plan is then presented to a much larger group, and note that this bottom-up approach in the end is democratic. That although it starts with a small group articulating a specific project, it subsequently invites a much larger group, in fact, invites everybody to comment on it, to participate, possibly to make modifications. My fear is that if we take the top-down approach, there are at the moment structures that allow us to call large meetings, invite everybody, ask everybody their opinion, and so forth, that we will not emerge with a coherent project. We will, in fact, perpetuate the status quo, which is a collection of fragmented efforts. South African Earth Science, unfortunately, has several silos, each autonomous. The threat, too, is that some of that autonomy will have to be sacrificed if we get to have an integrated project. I realize this is a very difficult topic. It needs discussion, and I hope that it will be one of the topics you discussed this morning. But let me just quickly list a few projects I had in mind, and there are basically 4 of them. The first is a school project, say for high schools, where every child in the classroom is given a thermometer to monitor the march of the seasons. And the child is also asked to adopt a plant and shrub, to take a selfie picture once a week to record the life cycle of the plant. And in addition to those assignments, the students have to find out about the climatological seasonal cycle so as to have a context for the particular one they are monitoring. The students are also put in contact with others in other parts of the country where the seasonal cycle is different. In South Africa, that's not a problem at all. Some parts of South Africa get rain in summer, some in winter, some throughout the year, some never. And everybody has a cell phone. It should be easy to put them in contact with one another. We can even spread it abroad. I want to emphasize that this exercise has several goals. One, you could argue, is to find out if there is evidence for global warming. Another is to learn about graphs, statistics, the software program called Excel. All of those are skills needed for a variety of jobs. And the third goal is simply to discover that different people in different regions face different challenges and deal with them in different ways. And the last one could perhaps be the most important lesson to be learned from this exercise. Carl organized the Habitable Planet alumni, or maybe they've self-organized. They form a group called the Planeteers, and this is basically an assignment for that group. They go back to the schools, they bring the word that ours is an exceptional planet, and here's a specific project that the Planeteers can promote. The next activity could be an extension of the Habitable Planet workshops. They're immensely successful, but they reach small numbers of people. I think something like 30 attend a workshop, and there are 6 a year. That's a drop in the bucket. And so Carl at the moment is working on putting this on the World Wide Web, and I feel that that effort has to be encouraged strongly, that Habitable Planet workshops should be made accessible to a far larger number of people. The third activity, and this is probably the most ambitious one of all, now that we've whetted the appetite of students by means of Habitable Planet workshops, what do we offer them next? And I propose that we start planning a national master's degree that is offered jointly by all the universities in South Africa, or as many as possible. And by that I mean not only UCT or WITS, but also Philander and Limpopo and so forth. The disadvantaged universities too should be included. And the idea is to offer a master's degree in integrated earth system science. It's an exciting new area where we integrate the different branches of the earth sciences: atmospheric science, oceanography, geology, biology, and chemistry, and basically expand the Habitable Planet workshops, which last for 10 days, into a 1-year program. Few institutes have the range of expertise needed to offer such a course, but I think collectively the universities in South Africa can do that. Teaching, having people available to teach these courses is a problem, but I've been making inquiries, and I can find any number of foreign postdoctoral fellows who would be more than willing to go in small groups of 3 or 4 to visit some of these universities in the rural parts for extended periods, say 10 weeks. And they can offer a course or two, they can interact with the students. It will be to the credit of these postdocs. It will look wonderful on their CVs if they can state that they did this. It will be of benefit to the places they visit. Part of the job will be to identify exceptional students. In any population, there are a few exceptional people. They have to be nurtured, they have to be encouraged. We have to set up links with foreign universities. I've spoken to a few colleagues in the USA to accept such students. So the main goal of this exercise, again, is not so much to produce more earth scientists. A small fraction of the people who take this master's degree in integrated earth science will become earth scientists themselves, research scientists. The idea is simply to provide the participants in this project with the skills that will qualify them for any number of jobs in business, in the government, throughout society. The astronomers have attempted such a project. They do it on a very small scale. When I last inquired, I think there were close to 4 or 5 students participating in it. But it would be useful to have discussions with them to find out what their experience was. But it could be the core component of the education project that we're proposing. I think I'll stop there. What I've just said, I've sent Carl a copy and it's printed and I've provided with you. I'll join you later this afternoon for a discussion of how we should proceed next. So have a good day and I'll see you later today.